Summer 2023 is in the books, and we not only survived, but we thrived, very much like it's 2019 again. Our super thoughtful friend from the West Coast, Kelly Jones, joins us to talk about last summer, and we'll try hard not to just talk about staff stuff, but that seems to be what people do want to hear. This is the Day Camp Pod. Welcome back to the Day Camp Podcast. I'm Andy Pritikin, Director of Liberty Lake in the Philly suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And we are joined today by Kelly Jones from Outpost Summer Camps in beautiful San Diego. How are you doing, Kel?
Doing great. Nice to be here with both of you.
This is our 2023 summer debrief kind of session here, and we just wanted to go around a little bit and just talk about, like, how was your summer and what were some of the things that were awesome and some of the things that were tough and that kind of thing. So Sam, we have nominated you to go first, so go for it.
All right. So being municipal, people pay taxes. They feel it's their right to be in camp. And so we were maxed out, waiting lists again this year, which was nice. But you get a lot of new in the mix as well. People age out, so that's good. So that was kind of our basis. What was unusual that happened that was amazing is my staff usually stay between 3 and 5 years, and then they, move on to their forever jobs. And I had 6 counselors that had been gone and working out in the world for like 4 or 5 years. They all decided to come back. They were switching jobs, they were moving, they wanted to come back to camp for a summer. So having 6 people that could have been directors, just being camp counselors and enjoying it and being those coaches for the new staff was amazing. So such a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about some people and know that they were spreading what you had taught them without you having to do all of that was kind of nice.
It's interesting. It reminds me of I got a phone call from a guy that worked for us during the 2020 summer who had just graduated college, and he was amazing. He was one of the best group leaders that we had. And I was like, what are you doing with yourself? You're going to become a teacher? Because you'd be great at it. And he had been a soccer coach his whole life. And he was like, no, I'm an accountant and I already got a job and I'm going to make 6 figures and blah, 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 and all this kind of thing. I was like, well, you're great with kids if you ever want to come back, right? He calls last spring and he's like, you know what? I took your advice. And I'm like, what happened? He said, well, I started working at this accounting firm. And even after COVID, they're like, you're coming into the office once a month. And he's like, you mean the rest of the time I'm sitting in my kitchen with my laptop? Like, that's my job? And they're like, yes. And after a couple of years, he was like, I can't do this anymore. This is awful. This is not the way humans were meant to be. And he went back and got in New Jersey, they call it the alternate route to become a teacher. So I think that sort of relates to those 6 people you were talking about, yeah. Sam, that, people, and I think that's one of the good things about Gen Z, right? They don't put themselves into a hole and be like, well, I'm going to retire in 25 years.
The one guy was he's a college coach, and he had been sending me workers that were on his teams for like 3 or 4 years. And he just decided, hey, I really only work in the winter. I'm going to come play at camp this summer. So
Sam, one last thing with you about the summer. So what's the word around in like the greater between Chicago and Milwaukee kind of area, like how the summer went and all? I mean, do people feel like it's a big improvement? I mean, that's a sense I sort of get.
Yes, they feel more like the employee pool is better. There's more people wanting to do the job again. They all were full, and maybe not. The theme was kind of they're not bending over backwards anymore to do all the specialty scheduling and pricing and all that because they're full. So, we're getting more assertive about this is us, take it or leave it.
Well, in regard to that, and like with Kelly's story about transportation, you never went back to your, like, you do your punch ticket thing, right?
Right. Teen camp, I let them do it one more year. But I think I may even ending it for teen camp next year. Yeah.
So Kelly, you would be able to buy a ticket with like X amount of days on it at her camp, and then they would literally punch it, which was That
We'd
was
have to build
very,
them into each group, and
very
yeah, it was,
customer
Yeah.
service friendly, I have to say.
Mhm.
so
Yeah, we had those different options before COVID also, not a punch card, but we had Monday through Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, and that we did away with too, which has been lovely. But we used to have 3-week sessions, and now they're 2 weeks. So that was a change. But
Why did you do that?
primarily because I personally didn't want to price people out. Like, people were buying either, because it was 3-week sessions, they were buying either 15 days, 9 days, or 6 days. So it seemed like if we just went to 15 days, then that was a lot. And I know that 3 weeks was a little bit challenging for people anyway. So we felt like with 2 weeks, it'll be a little bit easier to find junior counselors, which for us are, we do not use the word volunteer, but they are junior counselors in our leadership program, the counselor in training type of program. But they were way more available and able to sign up for those 2-week sessions too. So now we have, I think, more families doing multiple sessions, but just kind of depends. We have 4 2-week sessions, used to have 3 3-week sessions, but the school year, actually, our main school district down here, which is not the main one we draw from, but it is like the second biggest, San Diego Unified, they have really drastically changed their calendar. They used to start after Labor Day and then end of August, and this coming year in 2024 in the fall, they're going to start August 12th. So they've really moved it, kind of squished our summer. So I don't think they're getting any earlier than that, but we have like a magical 8 weeks that fits next summer, and that's it. So we're thankful we don't have 9 weeks anymore.
I
crazy.
remember being on Facebook this past year and seeing Dave from Tamarack being like, first day of camp. And I was just like, what?
Yeah,
Like, I haven't even started staff orientation yet.
right.
Holy mackerel. It is really interesting. All right. So before we keep going, I do want to give a shout out to our friends from CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists. Yes, those folks, they're at every single conference selling every single kind of thing. So CRS, they make some stuff, but really their big thing is that they're the ultimate middle people, right? They find great stuff and they bring it to the camp industry. And the cool thing about that is they understand the camp industry, because people like Rich and Ron and the people they have working for them have been working for camps for 30 years, and they understand our needs, and they understand what works at a camp versus a municipality versus a this versus a that. And one of their big things is inflatables, no doubt about it. You know, these guys, they create inflatable aqua park courses that can go into a lake or a pool that are super cool and super neat. They actually build courses for organizations that's all they do is water parks. So they're really good at that, and they understand how that works with a camp. And as far as fixing them when there's holes and things like that, they're great troubleshooters and all those kind of things. So anyway, CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialist, your go-to source for recreation solutions that will ensure your camp thrives. Explore their website today at crs4rec.com, because CRS is serious about fun. All right. Kelly, how was your summer?
You know, I know you were saying that you often do this debrief, as September or a little closer to the end of the summer. I'm kind of glad it's in October. I think it takes a while to kind of just have some perspective. So I think how I answer that question now is more accurate than how I would answer it maybe, on August 15th or something like that.
Totally.
So overall, it was great. We had our first director meeting actually for the next summer yesterday. So we get started pretty early on those, just with like our senior director team. So it was nice. That motivates me to go over all of our different surveys from parents and counselors and junior counselors. So it was nice too, because I think that gave me some concrete data instead of just, I feel like it went well. So overall, it went well. I think one thing that was really nice is, like I said, we made a lot of changes in between 2019 and 2021. We were closed in 2020, and so the first year we're kind of like limping back to opening. And then last year in 2022 we added in some other things that we just hadn't added back in, like the bus pickup and drop off after camp that I mentioned. We added in our morning and afternoon extended care, and we just just complicated a lot of things last summer. So that felt new in another way. And then this year felt like, okay, this is our first repeat of the previous summer that we're having, where we're not making any major changes. So that just felt nice. We kept being like, are we missing something? This feels easier. And so that was a good feeling to not feel like we were barely making it. But yeah, overall, our staff was great. I think one challenge, so how I would have answered a month ago is I would have talked about like, oh, it was tricky with our staff. But now that I've had some distance, actually 95% of our staff, they were just lovely and really awesome to work with, awesome role models for the kids. It's that little, 5% that keep you up at night or have you having a long meeting about what are we doing, or causing logistical troubles. So so that was probably our highlight and our challenge was our staff. I think the biggest challenge, which I was surprised by, as you know, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and group therapy is like my specialty in ADHD and that sort of thing. So when it comes to like interviewing, of course, I don't do therapy. That would be inappropriate. But those sorts of, one-on-one assessments, we do group interviews as well. I guess I feel confident, I trust my judgment, that sort of thing. And our biggest challenge was just that we hired a few people for whom the job just wasn't a good fit, and it's not that we didn't train them well enough. It's not that they're horrible people. It just wasn't a good fit. And so that was, I think, disappointing, because sometimes you look back at the interview and you're like, oh, we missed this. Or you look back and you're like, oh, we had that feeling of, well, we have to hire them if we don't really want to, but we're desperate. So we didn't have either of those feelings, which
They
made
could
it
be a
all
great
worse.
they could be a great interview though,
They
right?
were, yeah.
That could just be as simple as that.
Yeah, so that was a bummer. Like, it's been a long time since we had 3 people either quit or get fired, and that's what happened this summer. It's usually 0 or 1 or at the most 2. So that was what caused the most, like, just headaches and difficulty. And then, it has its cascading issues of how much transparency do you have with people? How much do you share about, well, this is why they quit? You're not trying to share people's business, but you also can't just say, poof, they're gone. So I think I had like just some ethical dilemmas of how much do I share. And then at the end of the summer,
That is such a great quandary. You
Yeah.
identified something that's so important, right?
Mhm.
They don't just poof disappear.
Right.
Right? Because they have friends there. It's a camp. People are going to talk. It's going to go like wildfire.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't get out in front of it, it's going to be misrepresented really
Mhm.
terribly also. So
Mhm.
that is a big thing as a camp leader, that you have to like punch the shark, and you got to get out and you got to make a statement and say something. And you got to be real careful on how you say it too,
Right.
that you're not like passing judgment on it too,
Right.
Just the facts, and so you can't get in trouble with them saying that
Right.
you're
Right.
libeling them
But
as well.
if it's phrased exactly the way Kelly started this section of what she was talking about with, it just didn't work out.
Right.
Right. I mean, a lot of times, like, you're hiring somebody and they have these strengths or whatever and weaknesses, and it just doesn't work out in camp, and you just don't know till it starts. And my question to you about these people that didn't work out is like, how far into your camp season were you before you pulled the plug? Because that's always interesting, right? Sometimes you can grab it during orientation. Sometimes you can grab it in the first couple of weeks. That's the best. The worst is when it's like 2/3 through the summer.
Mhm.
That's when it's painful for the camp community.
Well, I think that
That-
was part of our surprise was in the last many years, almost every time it doesn't work out, whether it's us saying this isn't a good fit or them saying it or both, it's almost always in our first session, whether that's 2 years or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like I was saying before. But this year it was not in the first session. So it was one person in the towards the beginning of the second session, one person towards the end of the second session, one at the beginning of the third session. And, as a leader, you're like, okay, another person quit, but what I tried to do, we do this exercise with our directors every year, which I love because it's so simple, but very I think about it all the time. And you probably both know who Brene Brown is. She does it's in her Dare to Lead book, but there's this values exercise. And it's like you pick from 88 values and you whittle it down to what are your 2 values. And we have our directors do this over the course of like a week or 2, because if we looked at the list right now, okay, but obviously it's hard to narrow down. So anyways, my 2 most certainly are compassion and integrity. So I think the ethical dilemma was like, well, I want to have integrity and compassion toward the person who quit. And like you said, Sam, not share their business and like not do something illegal, but also just not do something unkind. But then I also want to have good integrity to the people who are still working for us, where they need to be reassured that this isn't, nothing weird is going on. It wasn't a good fit, so how do I give them enough information to where they can go, oh, good. Oh yeah, I saw that too, which really was the case for all three of the people. So it's a tough spot.
Which that it's the best thing for your overall culture is that they know that you're going to follow through, but in a kind way. They're reassured that, hey, I'm not withheld to this standard, but that person was only held to that standard and they got away with it, because that creeps and takes over the whole culture. So it's really hard to cut loose, but in the long run, it makes it a lot easier down the road and with everyone else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not easier to keep someone for whom it's not a good fit. That's hard for them, hard for us, hard for all the other people who aren't mismatched and feel like the roles aren't equitable.
Yeah, and a lot of times these things are happening, and from the outside looking in, from other people perspective, they don't see it. They, as far as they know, this person's just doing a fine job and everything's peachy keen, right? And then all of a sudden they're not there, and you know, people, they just jump to conclusions, right? We had a wonderful person that I was so excited about working for us this summer, an adult with that came with a great background, and I was just so pumped about it. And she came through our leadership training, and she went to all our lead up meetings and trainings and stuff. And in the first week, it was a train wreck. It was just horrible. And but she was sort of putting on a happy face in front of most people. And then when, we sort of decided at the end of the week that it wasn't going to work out, it was very, very tough for me to explain it to some people, because she was very likable and she was super talented. Now all of a sudden she's not here. Like, why would you do that? But sometimes it literally is just as simple as it's just not a good match. It just didn't work out. Sometimes you have, to use like a sports metaphor, sometimes you have like, you're taking a shortstop and you're trying to make him into a pitcher, and they just can't pitch. And it's just not working. And then also some people are not used to the working as a team like we work at camp, right? Where you constantly just have to be compromising and working with folks and stuff. And a lot of people, especially if they work in schools, are very autonomous and they're very used to doing their thing their way. And that is just not a camp thing. And it's the kind of thing you can explain to people up front, and they're just like, yeah, sure, no, shouldn't be a problem. Don't worry about it, right? And then, the rubber hits the road and it's 100 degrees outside and everybody's stressed out, and yeah.
Yeah, and that was part of the difficulty, is because we felt like, gosh, like we do have a pretty extensive interview process. So by the time these people were hired, and I felt like your description, where I was so excited about all three of these people, like there was no wishy-washiness. Like I was really, really excited to work with them, and we had described the job in so very much detail. But I think part of it is people just don't know how something's going to be sometimes until they're doing it, and it was totally different reasons. One person, it was too physically demanding. Another person had some family stuff going on. Another person had some other personal difficulties. So it was not so related to camp, except that it wasn't a good fit. But it's just hard, because you're really trusting someone when you hire them, that they have the awareness to assess for themselves what's a good fit. And all we can do is hope that on both sides our assessments match and are accurate. And
yeah. Well, to me, we could do an entire podcast episode about hiring people who have never worked at camp before, because that's part of the issue, is that you're explaining what it's like, but it's not happening, right? It's theoretical, and you're explaining what it's like, and then it starts, and it's not what they thought it was going to be, and and I'm in an area where my camp was the first camp like ever in our area. So I am constantly hiring people whose parents never went to camp, the kids never went to camp, and all that kind of thing. And it's hard. And I think it's even harder when you're hiring full-time people. Because because we've been trying to hire a staffing person. When you hire someone with HR background, all this kind of thing, but they've never been to camp, like maybe it's better to hire someone with no HR experience, but they understand camp, and you could teach them the HR experience, because camp is just such a nuanced unique thing. And I know I talk to consultants and professionals all the time that do all different businesses, and they all say, oh, every business thinks they're unique. Well, I'm sorry. I think that camp is like really weirdly nuanced and unique. And
Yeah.
and I think that we expect a lot from people that most jobs don't. The level of commitment, right? The physical and emotional dedication that it takes is just so much different than working at school,
Mhm.
And
or
a lot of camp you have to learn by doing too, which it puts a lot of people, type A people on edge that they have to, you
mm,
can explain all you want before you get there, but you have to, especially with my inclusion aids,
another great
they
point,
they can
type A.
read all the books, they can do all that, but until they realize this is how that translates in real life, they don't get it, and they
Yeah,
may not, and they may, but so those first few weeks are so
yeah.
intense because
It's a very tough gig for a type A person because everything does not fit neatly into a box
Right.
ever.
Yeah, my husband, he used to, I do all the interviewing with our director Sam now. Good name. But my husband used to do it, and he used to say that if somebody, said, "Oh, well, I have a 4.4 GPA," he'd be like, I don't know. Like that would like count against them, it's almost like that's
Oh
not
my God,
but
it's
we
interesting.
we've found that I think a lot of the things that sound like they would prepare you to work at camp really, really don't. Like babysitting, for example, it's, oh, I like kids, I babysit. That's not bad, but it's just not the same. Same thing, like you said, Andy, working at a school. What we found is when somebody has been a server at a restaurant, we're like, oh, great, because that seems to
Oh
really,
yeah,
someone is unfairly upset at you, something went wrong, someone's not holding up their end of the situation that you're working with. There's just so many, and you have to be quick, you have to make
absolutely.
decisions, and you
Yeah,
have to be
service.
friendly, and you have to be kind to this table even though this table is frustrating. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
skills, that, and then also improv. We have a lot of people who
Oh
do
yeah,
improv,
drama
and I
people
think
are the
that
best.
thinking on your feet and then being
Mhm.
part of that team, and the sometimes it's not even the people that are on stage, the people working backstage,
Oh
those two
sure.
tend to come up a lot
Oh,
and match camp well, I think.
I agree with you
yeah,
so much.
that's
And just a
great.
little preview. I'm doing a session at Tri-State with Eric Wittenberg,
Mm.
um, comparing the TV show The Bear to running a summer camp because of that whole service restaurant thing, and the intensity and trying to get the best out of people who don't realize they have it in them. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
always look too if they've done any like traveling abroad or charity work or something where they were out of their element, had to work with a team they didn't know. That helps too. Just all those are good.
and
So
then you might get somebody from the next town who has never left their town, who is a C student, and they might be the greatest camp counselor you ever had ever, right? So
yeah.
Right.
you just never know, who bombs their interview. Like
Right.
you never know. um well, with my summer, um it was great. Also, it was definitely, if it had that more of that 2019 vibe, a lot more. The staff were way more resilient and willing to go the extra mile and patient, right? I feel like in 2020, 2021, 2022, like that they just had lost their patience in a lot of things, and they were just more used to dealing with tougher situations, which I thought was great. The kids I thought were super, and the parents are great too. I mean, the demand in our area for camp, like you were saying, Sam, is crazy. I mean, I know Sam doesn't open her enrollment until much later. She's a municipality. I know most of my Western Coast friends, they don't open their things early either, except I know Mike does. We open ours, like most of the Northeast people, early, and like many of my colleagues we're like 90% filled, at this point, which is nuts. For us, we never used to be like that until the pandemic. Um, so that's an interesting thing that we've had to deal with at Liberty Lake is how to change our policies and such, to match that. everything used to be tilted towards the customer because we were just so badly wanted customers, and now we have lots of customers. So it's like now we have to sort of tilt it back to our advantage, and also treat our camp almost like it's a sleepaway camp where we have so many beds and so many kids, and we want to maximize it. We don't want to raise prices, so high. All our costs are going up crazy, so we want to maximize what we have. So we want to have a filled camp each week. And that is interesting in a day camp where, Kelly's got these 2-week sessions, which is great, keeps people organized in those things. We have gone to a model now, it's 3 weeks, 3 to 8 weeks, right? And you sort of just pick them. We tried to do sessions last year. We ended up with gaps anyway. An interesting thing is, one of your sessions the 4th of July session, Kelly, like the 4th of July's in there?
Yes, and I declare that Tuesday is the worst day for 4th of July for a camp owner.
Well,
Tuesday.
it's Thursday this year, but it's just as bad.
Better than Tuesday.
So, but how differently priced is that 2-week session versus the others, or is it the same?
So what we always do is on that day, whatever day it is, we close, and so we're not open that day, but all the rest of the days we are. So best case scenario, it's on a Saturday or Sunday, and then we still get to have 10 days of camp, but often that just makes it 9 days instead of 10. So we adjust accordingly, ish based on the day. So it has a certain amount of money off that corresponds to the number of days. But last year was definitely, or like this past summer, it filled more slowly than ever before. Usually it doesn't make such a difference, it makes a little bit of a difference, but so I don't think Thursday is going to be quite as bad. And for us, regardless of how it fills, it won't be as bad, because at least we'll get to start the session on the Monday. We'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then some kids will miss Thursday and Friday, or some kids will just be there on Friday. But we started a session on July 3rd, then had a day off, then had the second day on July 5th. So that was tricky.
Yeah.
But our staff all showed up. None of them were hungover that I could tell. So I was impressed.
Yeah.
The bar was low, but they were all there. They crushed it.
So, I've done this now for, being a camp professional for, I don't know, 25 years or so. And I dread these days, right? These little days where, whether it's Monday or Friday, that, or these in between days from the 4th of July. And I decided after last year that I don't want to do it again, because we had so many kids call out, right? Which isn't the worst thing. I did have staff that told me before the camp even started that they couldn't make it these times, that, or don't take me, like it's a family vacation and that's just the way it is. And then I did have staff that came in pretty banged up. I don't think they were necessarily drunk or high showing up, but they definitely were into the wee hours, that the night before. And I just don't want to deal with that, because yes, those people were irresponsible and bad employees, and one of them even got fired. But the ones that came to work just were like, I can't believe I'm here, kind of thing. Like this is not great. And we've done so much to support our staff and give them so much and help them out and make them feel good about their job. And so this year will be the first year I'm doing 38 days of camp. And I'm just not going to have camp on that Friday. So one of the things I did in my pricing for 2024 is I came up with a price for each week. So there's a week 1 price, a week 2 price, a week 3 price. And I took the model from like Major League Baseball. So if they're playing a junkie team, then it's less. If they're playing a good team, it's more, kind of thing. And the budget conscious people are choosing the lesser weeks, including the 4th of July week, the 3-day week, right? And people who don't give a crap, that's great. They don't give a crap, and they choose the expensive ones. Excellent. Because I reduced that 4th of July week so much, I increased the other ones in amount that just kept it even. So I didn't really lose anything on it at all. And I actually didn't increase my prices as much this year because I was worried about what it would look like having these different priced weeks and then a multi-week discount tacked onto that. It's a lot of math. And although I did create, if you go to Liberty Lake Day Camp's dates and rates page, I have a tuition calculator I created that just makes it easy. You put in, the weeks you want, the age of your kids, any discounts, all that kind of thing. And it gives you, spits out a price. Eric Wittenberg helped me do that. Thank you, Eric. Because the math thing is tough. So anyway, before we go on with our last little segment, I got to give a shout out to our friend Ryan Rosen and Camptivities. Woo! They're back. the activity schedules, they're it shouldn't be that difficult, and it shouldn't take as much time as it does, unless you're at Outpost camp and the kids just go outside and play. And by the way, there's a great episode with Kelly and Michael Brandwine from like 3 years ago. It's probably like in our first 10 episodes, where Kelly talks about her awesome program, which is very, very, I don't know how you would describe it quickly, but it's the programming is about the kids being creative, right?
Facilitated, unstructured nature play.
Yeah,
Would be
I
a
love
short
it. I
phrase.
love it.
Yeah.
Of which Liberty Lake has a 45-minute period in our stay of that kind of thing. But anyway, for those of you that are you crazy people that overprogram your staff and your kids, and you have these half-hour blocks all over the place, okay, Camptivities is for you. And that, by the way, is most camps. So check them out to learn all about their scheduling tools specifically designed for camps by camp people. That's the important thing. Ryan and his crew, they understand what you're going through. Okay, so save time, get rid of mistakes, and get back to enjoying your summer. Find out more at camptivities.com. All right. And you can see Ryan at all the different big conferences. He'll be there with his crew, and he'll go online with you and run you through what it looks like. And it is pretty darn slick. And I have a lot of well-respected camp friends who use Camptivities and vouch for it. All right.
And I can plug Ryan as a good human being. He's a good dude. We've been trading things that he knows a lot about, or I know a lot about, and that's been a good relationship over the years, which I think and hope mutually benefits us.
Yes, and I think Kelly, I say the same thing, and there's many others. Ryan is a share, and it's great. And he's been curating the weekly or bi-weekly now Wake day camp get-togethers on Zoom, which started during the pandemic and have been really, really great.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot from each other, and it's just it's also sort of like therapy session in a way, for people.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So, when we were going through ideas for those bi-weekly sessions, Kelly put a bunch of great ideas, and I was like, oh, that's why I said we gotta have Kelly on a podcast. And one of the first things that she spoke about, and this might be all we get to talk about from that list, Kel, is about the staff calling out and such. It's such an interesting thing that happens. And that is tough to manage, and trying to figure out how to do it. How are we doing it? Now, one of the interesting things I think Kelly touched upon is that Kelly's got these 2-week sessions, and you implied in how you were describing it, that if I'm a staff person, I can't make these 2 weeks, then I just don't work those 2 weeks, right? It's as simple as that. So do you have people hired for 6 weeks and 4 weeks and 2 weeks, as well as 8?
No, it's all or nothing. You're
really?
You're 8 weeks or you're nothing. We are very
you.
hardcore. Yeah, technically 9 weeks because of the training.
Wow. I would say that you are becoming like the dodo bird in camping when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we've even last summer in 2022, we had just one position that we split 4 and 4 weeks because it was 2 returners who we'd known forever. And it went not badly in terms of the quality of them being counselors. They're great people. They were still good counselors, but neither of them had nearly as good of an experience. One person left kind of before it became good and everyone was buddies and they kind of missed all the good stuff. The other person came in just like, I'm having a week 1 and everyone else is having a week 5. And it was so much harder than we thought. So we were kind of like, okay, we're going to stick with this as long as we can. So we'll see.
All right. So if, let's say I move to your area, okay, and I'm this amazing whatever basketball coach, whatever, some kind of unique thing that'd be great for your camp, and I tell you, Kelly, I can work for you, but I already know that I'm missing the first week of August or something like that. You're just like, adios, amigo, talk to you next year. Is that what you say?
Yeah, we really do. We really do. The only exception would be if it's somebody who has been with us for a really long time and we can create a role around it. Mm-hmm. We created I call it, I shouldn't say whose name it's after, but we have a rule named after the person that we didn't fire him, but he didn't fit into our staffing. This was years ago, not schedule wise, personality and skills wise. And we ended up not having him on our staff anymore. And then we were crushed. We're like, that was stupid. We should have created something that did fit him. So if we can do that, if we can create a special position that matches somebody, because like, for example, one of our staff, he works at it's called Camp Kesem for kids with parents who have
Wonderful place.
cancer. Yeah. And so that's really
Wonderful
meaningful. We want to
place.
support him
Yeah.
in being able to do that for a week, but those are like the only exceptions that we'll make to that.
Well, that brings up something really good too, when you were talking about if you can create something to fit. You had another quick question that said if someone comes in with an injury they didn't get with you or a disability, and then how do you accommodate that, and how do you keep yourself from being liable? So I, what we had one who got her ankle caught in an outboard motor right, but 2 weeks before camp. She's like,
Yikes.
oh, I've got a boot on, I can do it. And it's like, no, you need the doctor's note to protect us that you are actually going to be okay being in the building with children.
Yeah, that's
But
for
then
darn
we
sure.
had to figure out with her and her co-counselor, how's this going to work so the co-counselor isn't feeling like they're doing all the work, she's not doing any work, whatever. And in that case, it worked out where she took over the art table duties. So it could be anything that they're good at, but that is not going to get them re-injured. And you've already got that in writing from a doctor that they're allowed to be there. It's not, you're not putting them at risk.
Yeah, that's
by
a place
having
you need to be type A in that
Yeah.
situation there,
Right.
even if you're not.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to get Kelly's take on this before we go. Okay, it's
Okay.
something that she had written in one of the ideas, which is how can we best convey to our staff before the season, like, as I mean, people are signing up to work at camp months and months before, right? Whether they're new people or return people. How do we convey to them the importance of being there every day, right? Like you gave an example, oh, well, my friend's in the hospital, I need to be with her, and that kind of thing. Well, that's great, but there's a group of children here that don't have a leader now if you do that, right? And it's, I just feel that it's a generational thing. Right? Like now it's just like, nope, I need to feel safe. I'm mental health. I got to be with my friend. And it's just like they feel like now that they can just do whatever their heart really wants them to do at that moment. Right. And meanwhile, not to sound too much like Stuart Jones, but you have a job, okay, and that you're going to get paid for it and all that kind of thing. And it is a balance that I'm trying to get better at verbalizing up front, because we cannot just assume now that these folks understand that they have to be there every day. So what are your thoughts on that, Kelly?
Oh, I have so many, so cut me off, but cut me off as needed.
No, we won't cut you off. We'll cut earlier stuff out. This is important.
So there's a lot of things. The first, I think, is our structure at Outpost really helps us more easily convey it, because we do have one senior counselor along with one or two junior counselors in charge of a consistent group for 2 weeks of 12 kids. So that's their person. And so if Andy, you're the senior counselor, then you're the one who helps them create a group name, who has the inside jokes, who has the traditions, who knows all the things. So it's not, Sam could fill in for Andy. Sam could even have more skills than Andy, but you're not Andy. And so it's not, there really is a hole, if you're not there for a day or for an afternoon. And so, one thing that I see is that people don't really get that until they're there, and they're like, wow, like this really is on me, and it really does stink for the kids. Of course, they're weighing that along with the personal things in their life and all these other things. But what happened this summer was towards the end of our first session, I wore this shirt to camp that has the word staff on it. And I said, I'm wearing this so I can represent the staff, how we are all in this together. We have this quadrant training that we do. And in the staff quadrant, we talk about how what I do affects you. And if I'm the cool counselor bending the rules, then that makes you the uncool counselor and all that sort of stuff. So my point was, we need to have each other's backs, because what was happening was every single person on the staff, we have about 45 or so full-time senior staff, every single person had one little thing. So whether that was, oh, I have to come in at 9:30 instead of 8 because I have a optometrist appointment. I have to leave at 2 because I have to beat the traffic to go to my dad's party in LA. It was all little one-off things. But it was just causing so many issues each day, because if I do that, well, then someone has to cover for me, and then they aren't doing the regular thing they do. And so I told them on that day, I said, look, this isn't to demonize how people have been doing. Some of you very professionally said, oh, I'm so sorry, I have this thing and I can't get out, fine. I said, at the end of the day today, by 4:30, you must come speak to me if there's anything between now and the end of your contract. We use the word contract all the time. Between now and the end of your contract, which ends August 11th, I need to know now. And if it's something that can be pushed to August 12th, or you can do on a weekend, or you can do at 5 p.m., please do that. If it can't be, then tell me why not. And you don't have to give me a long story. You don't have to tell me what it's for and the history of the weird thing on your foot. I don't want to know about that. But you need to come to me face to face right now. We can talk about it. And I'm like, as a reminder, like, this is what you signed. This is what this is. And it affects other people in a negative way. And I think they knew that it affected them, other people in a negative way, because they were all being affected by each other's things, so this wasn't just me saying, this is really annoying for me. This was like, this stinks. Like, we're all the people that would be helping you do your job more easily and more effectively are actually covering for the people who are gone. And the quality is,
Yeah. It just blows my mind to a degree that these competent people, some of them are really awesome, that they don't just naturally understand that, the negative implications of them not being there, right? And they just, hey, Andy, I'm not coming in tomorrow, right? No explanation, no nothing. Email, usually, text sometimes, face-to-face sometimes, right? And like you said, I don't need the history of the thing on their foot, okay? But I need something, because we got to talk about this. And also, like, I dig in, like, I get personal, because I need to train these people to understand that there are options of things that they can do, right? Because they think, well, the doctor said this, I got to do this. My school said this, I have to do this, right? And I can't say,
my mom scheduled this for
my
me,
mom, my mom.
Yeah.
Tell your mom, right? But anyway, yeah, I think that it's a training thing. It really is. And it needs to be like a module in people's staff training.
Well, we started probably last year doing a training with the junior counselors. So for us, they're in high school, they're entering sophomore year through freshman year in college, and we would do a professionalism training at least once a session. And then we thought, we need to do this with the senior staff, almost more so, because they are adults, and some of them don't need it at all, which I think is why we're kind of like leaning toward the junior counselors having it consistently. But I think they do need it. For example, even like asking, like right now I'm knee deep in letters of recommendation. I have like 7 that I need to write today. But I told them, I think the line that stuck the most is I said, don't make me annoyed with you right when I'm supposed to write you a letter, like, give me the information, give me enough time. Also, like, this is just a pet peeve of mine. People call me Kelly, call me hey you, but don't call me Mrs. Jones, because I'm Dr. Jones. Just don't call me Mrs. Jones, please. So then I got all these emails for letters of like, dear Dr. Jones. I'm like, you can call me Kelly, it's fine. But just, be mindful and be having this perspective. So I think I will say it wasn't a magical speech and it wasn't perfect after that, but that was our first session. Sessions 2, 3, and 4 were so much better. Huge improvement. But it was weird because this summer in session 1, I counted, and we had a staff of, like I said, 45, and there were 30 different things that had of people who had called out. It was mostly one person, like a different person per thing. And I compared it to last year, 2022, session 1, 0 times had anyone called out. So that's weird. It also was so many of the same people. We had a huge percentage of returning staff. So there were certain things I was just a little perplexed by. I'm like, are they more comfortable?
That's part of it.
Are they
That's
less
definitely part of it.
worried? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll figure
Because
it
they know
out.
you. Guess what, Kelly? You're really nice. You are. You're just a nice person. So they do feel
I got
comfortable.
boundaries though. I got
Right,
boundaries.
but they feel comfortable. I'm a nice guy too, and they feel comfortable. That is absolutely a part of it, I believe. And what I'm finding is with my adult staff now, because most of them are school teachers with children, right? They live stressful lives, and they need a week in the summer, or they're not going to like mentally be able to go back to school, And if I had 45 staff, I could probably do that. But when you have 300 staff, it's a lot tougher. And I'm definitely making a lot more accommodations and have a lot more people that are working 7 weeks because of that. And I hear from Brandy, who's the director that runs my program, how it compromises our program. And it absolutely does.
Mhm.
Wow.
You have the new ones who job is not the number one priority in all their scope of their life. And then you have the older ones who are like, I put my time in this year. I want some time off,
Mhm.
so now they're feeling more like they are comfortable asking for those things because they put in their time.
Yeah, and
So,
there's a continuum on it, right? Because then you have people who've been there for 15 years that ask you to go to the bathroom, right? Like it's how people are raised, and
yeah,
everybody's
Right.
different,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think it's funny. There's someone who's worked for us for a long time, and I'm totally biased toward her because she's also one of my kids' best friends. But she was saying, she goes, it's not just age. She goes, some of us are just like a little scared of authority, I don't
Mm.
want to call out.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we were kind of talking about like what personality type is like that, because it's definitely not the whole staff. Like, so I think that's the healthy
Yeah.
distance I have from it, is it seemed at the time like it was the whole staff, and it really wasn't. It was just a few people. But I think, like you said, Sam, it's exactly that. It's that not only is it not their top priority, it's not sometimes it's their last priority. Like, I had people approach
yeah,
me with, I'm like, and I'm
Yep.
a nice person mostly. Like, I care that you're moving. That's tricky to move from one apartment to another. Gosh, what a lot of work. That stinks. Or, oh, your friend is in the hospital and they're perfectly fine. I'm so glad that they're okay. That was stressful. Also
Mhm.
glad they're okay. But this should be the immovable thing in your schedule. This is scheduled. You are scheduled
yeah,
to work. You're scheduled. So if you're deciding to stay up late packing, then you're going to be tired at work, or maybe you
Mm.
shouldn't go to happy hour after work and you should go pack. Yeah, I know it's a
Yeah.
sacrifice, but it's like I had those conversations where this one staff, and again, she's one of our, it was actually our older staff. And for us, older is like 22 to 29, but our older staff were so much worse at this than our younger staff, actually, and they were the ones that quit. Actually, they were our three oldest staff. And in terms of counselors or non-directors, but I had someone say, well, I'm moving, so like I just can't come in today. And I'm like, yes, you can. You just need to go pack when you get home, or
Wake
or
up early.
the
Yeah.
hospital
yeah,
example. I'm like, your friend is in the waiting room for the emergency room. Like, he might be lonely if you're not there, but he's not unsafe. He's in the emergency room for something that was fine, and you chose to stay there until midnight. Also, like, I go to bed at midnight all the time because I'm working, and then I come in and talk to you lovely folks. But
Yeah.
I don't know, it was interesting. I had to kind of reflect back to them, you're thinking about this in a different, like, you need to zoom out. I think that was like the skill of like the
yeah,
zoom out. Because I had this
Mhm.
one hospital example. The person wrote back and they said, I feel like you're being very dismissive. This was through email because they're not
Right.
there. And I said, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I said, I'm going to give you a little more information then about, about where I'm coming from, and like kind of what this, just the whole system. And then he wrote back after that. He goes, I'm sorry, I'll be there first thing tomorrow. I won't call out again. I was like, okay, and I wasn't mad. And I
Yeah.
yeah,
also care about his
Yeah.
health and his mental health and his friend's health,
Yeah.
but it's like it's become the last priority
Yeah.
right.
instead
You're
of
saying,
first,
yeah.
second, or third.
You're saying that perfectly. And I attribute so much of it to parenting. I really do. The kids that grew up with parents that were tougher, they would never be doing that. And I think a lot of parents just let their kids do whatever. And if their kid really wants it, they let them do it and all that kind of thing. And then we have to sort of act like tough parents. We have to give them tough love and explain to them, we're not doing it because we're mean and you agreed to do this. Yes, they're contracted and scheduled and all that kind of thing. But it's just it's the right thing to do. Like, you committed to this. You're taking care of other people's children. It's the ultimate responsibility, and you can't treat it like it's the last priority.
I
Right.
do I
So
do think, though, so that it doesn't sound like I'm just complaining, because truly most of our staff were awesome, and the people that did call out are also lovely. I really like them,
mhm.
and they did a great job at their role. So not trying to poo-poo them
Yeah,
as
I hear you.
employees, but I think one thing, well, two things. First, I don't know if it's the parenting or not. I don't know their parents, and so I don't know.
Good
Um,
point.
I whether it is or not, I think a huge thing that contributes is just the societal norm of everything can be adjusted. Case in point, my Amazon ordering. Actually, I don't want that. Actually, I'm going to cancel. Actually, I'm going to take it back. Actually, like just all these, every single thing is fixable, undoable, uncommittable. I can commit, I can uncommit, I can change my mind. Like, just there's so much that's normal now, where I think that used to be weird. If you say yes to a job, you have the job, and it's like, oh, you only worked there for 2 years. Now it's like, you made it the whole summer. I think there's just the norms are so different. And then I do think it is our job as camp directors to help them care, to help them understand why it matters, to help them see how it affects them. It was cute because the one guy who wasn't the one who was sick, it was 2 of our camp staff. One was sick in the emergency room. The other one was there to comfort him. And so the second guy, he ended up coming in late the next day. He wanted the whole day off. We compromised via email at 11 p.m., which goes against my boundaries, but I'm not going to call him, and otherwise I'm just not going to see him tomorrow. So he came at 12, and the next day he goes, gosh, yesterday was so hard. It's really tough to come in the middle of the day. I said, yeah, it is. It was really hard for your kids and also your junior counselor, but I think he felt the pain of it's hard. You came in and your group didn't go as well as it could have in the morning because their person wasn't there. They were having some behavior issues that didn't get solved in the way he would have solved them. And so I think part of it is trusting that they'll experience it and learn from it, but we also have to help them, because that's a skill in itself too. Learning from experience is a skill. So there's a lot of factors and variables, but it's tough because I never want it to feel like it's us, the directors, versus them, the old people who just sucked it up and the young people who are flaky. Because I don't think it's flaky. I just think it's such different norms, and it's such a first job for so many of them too.
Well, no other job, if you don't, well, not no other, but very few jobs, if you don't come in, it's unsafe. Our job is, if you don't come in, it is unsafe. We don't have a million subs waiting in the wings. Where, a factory job would probably be unsafe too, but most jobs, oh, well, that didn't get folded today, or the orders were slower or whatever. And this is not that kind of job. So.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's tricky because they need the clarity up front, but it doesn't land in their brain until they experience it, so it's like, how much do we say? This was part of my comment in that email. How much do we say proactively, and then how much do we say along the way, and how much of it is just one-on-one conversations that we have to have? But I think it's workable.
Yeah, it's ongoing training.
And it's also a good, like you said, Andy, earlier, it's a good problem in a way because they feel safe and liked and like their mental health is cared about, to where I'm going to say, of course, don't come in tomorrow because you were scared last night, with your friend, and trying to help them know what caring about mental health looks like. It doesn't mean having no boundaries. It means being transparent and giving a little more information, and also giving you tough feedback sometimes is caring as well. But I love it.
I love it.
I like that too.
Kelly Jones, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Nice talking with you both.
You have a wonderful way of articulating thoughts, and I love listening to you talk. And you just, your take on things is just great. And the kids at Outpost camps are really lucky to have you as their grand poobah. So
appreciate that.
if you like what you hear, then you should subscribe to the Day Camp Podcast, everybody, on your favorite podcast platform. We want to thank the Go Camp Pro team, Camptivities, commercial recreation specialists, for helping bring this show to you. Check out the show notes from all our episodes at daycamppodcast.com, as well as contact info for the show, for Kelly, for me, and for Sam. Thanks for listening and making yourself a better Day Camp Pro. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode of the Day Camp Pod.